Hello and welcome to our webinar, Take Your SOC to the Next Level with Content-Rich Analysis, hosted by Devo and Corelight. Today we'll be talking about the security data visibility gap and how to take your SOC to the next level with real-time network visibility and analytics. And then following that, we will have a demonstration and Q&A session. I'm Ed Smith, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Corelight, and I'm honored to be joined today by Jason Michael, Global Security Evangelist at Devo. All right, so let's get started. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about some challenges that organizations are facing in obtaining security visibility. So as we meet with customers and we talk about network traffic analysis and network traffic monitoring, there's really two major areas of risk that they consistently describe, and that's visibility gaps and operational complexity. So, even with tons and tons of data, a lot of SOCs are facing gaps in their visibility. And that's for a couple different reasons. First off, you have sparse data sources like netflow. With netflow logs, these often don't give security operators the information that they need to do their investigations and to do their hunts. On the other hand, when you have a comprehensive data source like a PCAP file that's recording everything that's going on in the network, that's a lot of data, so much data that you really can't keep it for very long. So if you wanted to go back and investigate incidents that happened in the distant past, months or years ago, for example, a lot of times it's just too expensive to keep that data around and to store it long term. And then with logging from applications or, for example, like DNS server logging, oftentimes logging isn't enabled, especially throughout the enterprise. Oftentimes logging gets turned off for performance reasons, or logging is taking place on a server and application that you don't have access to. So those are just a couple of examples of visibility gaps. And then looking at operational complexity, day-to-day security operators are facing a lot of operational issues in terms of having just far too many alerts to deal with, dealing with lots and lots of alerts that are false positive. It takes a lot of time to go through and resolve those alerts. And a lot of times you're bringing in lots of data from lots of different sources, and it's hard to integrate all that data. Or, as the examples I mentioned earlier, you might not have enough data, and with, for example, like a netflow not providing enough detail or the right amount of detail that's really needed. So these gaps and operational complexity can really prevent you from being effective at finding threats that are already on your networks, acting quickly in the event of a breach, and of course, just simply adding more tools and more point solutions, that can just add more complexity. So it's really important to be judicious about the security tools that you're adding and choosing them carefully. So another way of looking at these gaps and this complexity, I like looking at it in terms of what Gartner calls the SOC Triad, and that's comprised of EDR, endpoint detection and response, as well as network detection and response, or NDR, and then having all this data go into a SIEM. So a lot of organizations, they have great EDR tools in place, but a lot of times there's visibility gaps for that network detection and response piece, such as the ones I mentioned earlier. And of course, many organizations have a SIEM in place, but oftentimes if it's a legacy SIEM, that's going to fall short in terms of that operational complexity, and as well as scalability and analytic capabilities. So EDR, NDR, whatever acronyms you want to use, it's really important, to not only be looking at potential threats on endpoints, but your networks as well. And then of course, having a SIEM that can take in that data and really help take your SOC to the next level. So I think EDR, is pretty well covered in terms of visibility, and tools and resources are out there. So for this webinar, I'm going to talk a little bit about NDR, and then we're going to hand things over to Jason, who's going to talk about SIM. So taking a closer look at NDR, we would argue that you really should be taking a data first approach. So in terms of collecting the right data, doing that constantly 24/7, having that data on hand so that when there is an incident, you have the right data that you need that's going to help you close those visibility gaps and resolve incidents faster. So monitoring your networks, doing that at strategic locations, that's really the fastest and most comprehensive, as well as least obtrusive step that you can take in closing that gap. Next, ensure that you're extracting data that will be relevant and useful in security investigations. So if you're collecting terabytes of PCAP files, that's really not going to be useful that much for day to day. It's much more useful to have the most important data that your incident responders will need at their fingertips. So as they're following threads and clues, that's going to help them understand the context of an attack. And then also combining that data, bringing it in from different systems, including behavioral data, that's going to be useful for helping form the evidence and the foundation that you'll need for a successful investigation and help resolve incidents more quickly. So one of the best ways to do this is using an open source tool called Zeke. So our company, Corelight, we were founded and the company's run by the creators and maintainers of Zeke. If you're not familiar with Zeke, you may have heard of it. It was formerly known as Bro. It was created back in 1995 by our co-founder and chief scientist, Vern Paxson. And over the last 25 years, it's been widely adopted. A lot of enterprises are using it because there's really no better way to extract data for security from your network traffic. So what Zeke does is it creates logs or Zeke logs, and these logs are structured and linked so that it's very easy to use them and pivot between them in security investigations. So in this example that I have on the screen, I'm showing 5 of the standard Zeke logs, and there's a couple things that you can see here. So if you look at that middle log, the con log or connection log, this is the most central of all the Zeke logs because what it does is it logs every single TCP connection and puts it into a con log. In addition, each connection is given a unique identifier or a UID, which is highlighted in blue, that allows you to pivot between the different logs when you're doing your investigation. And as you can see, the other logs have that UID, so you can jump around and kind of connect the dots to see the full picture of what happened. So following, a DNS request to a DNS response, web pages that were visited, files that were sent, emails, you get visibility into all of that to see the full picture of what happened. So there's roughly about 40 logs that come standard with Zeke. Corelight also includes some other logs that we've found to be really useful. Additional logs can be created via packages that are available through the Zeke community. And you can also write and install your own custom packages to extend the functionality of Zeke and the Corelight sensors. The Zeke logs can also help gain visibility even when the network traffic is encrypted. So this is useful in environments where breaking and inspecting traffic is unfeasible due to technical or legal or privacy issues. So you can do things like dynamic protocol detection. This is useful for finding SSL traffic no matter what port it's using on, which can help you find weaker or older cipher suites. You could do certificate tracking, find self-signed certs, expired certs, soon to expire certs. We also can do fingerprinting of SSL connections. This is using the Zeke Community JA3 package. So you can do things like fingerprint SSL handshakes to blacklist or whitelist them. So you're really getting all the context around the SSL sessions as well, including the DNS logs, the connection logs, that type of thing. And an exciting new feature on our AP3000 sensor that I wanted to quickly touch on, because this is really exciting. And that's the ability to run both Zeke and Sericata in parallel on one sensor. And if you're not familiar with Sericata, It's another open source network security tool like Zeke, but it focuses on doing intrusion detection. So Zeke and Sericata, very complementary, right? Because Sericata can detect and alert on bad things that are happening on the network, and then Zeke provides extremely useful evidence for investigating those alerts that are created by Sericata. So the way that it works is that Zeke extracts those dozens of log files from the live network traffic, and then at the same time, Sericata is looking for malicious traffic using signature feeds like ET-Pro signature feeds. Then Sericata alerts are passed back through Zeke's event processing engine. And then here's where the magic happens. Zeke capabilities are applied to those Sericata alerts. And this is where we can do things like fuse the alert and the data together using that Corelight UID, which enables easy pivot and correlation for analysis. Then the integrated output, Zeke and Sericata, is then sent to your SIM, in this case, Devo. So to give you an idea of how Corelight can be deployed in your network, this diagram is a useful, gives you kind of that idea of how they can be deployed. So conceptually, a Corelight sensor, it's ingesting a copy of network traffic, processing packets, performing deep packet inspection, it's then sending those logs, the alerts, the detections, sending all this great data into Devo. Corelight sensors can also do high-speed file extraction. So making a copy of every file that crosses over the wire. Those can also be sent into Devo or a file analysis platform for later examination. Once this data is in Devo, and as Jason will talk about in a second, this Corelight data enables you to do great things in terms of triage and investigation, instant response, forensics, threat hunting and detection, and entity behavior analytics. These sensors can be deployed wherever you need them: data centers, branch offices, public cloud, and everywhere in between. Oftentimes, our customers start by monitoring key locations like ingress-egress points as far as north-south traffic, and then moving on to monitoring internal traffic as well, which is another popular use case. So looking at east-west traffic, so you're able to detect things like lateral movement and command control threats. And then as far as public cloud, Corelight can be deployed there as well using our cloud sensor. So now I'd like to hand it over to Jason, who's going to talk about how to take in that Corelight data into Devo and how that can help take your SOC to the next level.
Thank you, Ed. So to continue on the journey and the path that Ed was just discussing, and what organizations are really challenged with when they do not have that kind of visibility into the organization's network communication flows, it is causing burnout because in like the SOC analysts, because they really don't have that visibility that they need to effectively respond to notifications or alerts that do get triggered. So what we did with Devo, we partnered with Panamon again for the second year in a row to do some performance reporting of what are the biggest challenges and what are the things that the security operations centers are faced with today. And out of the large amount of respondents, we still are seeing some really scary percentages that are out there in the industry, and such as these presented here, like 89% do consider that the Security Operations Center is important to their overall cyber strategy, but only 50% of them actually feel that their SOC is effective. So that those numbers really don't align up well when you're trying to talk to senior management of invest in my, these technologies and people and processes and such, if they're really not getting the support that they need. 65% of analysts are really, when we ask them, are considering quitting, in their role because of multiple factors. One, of course, is alert fatigue. and just the stress of not having the visibility. So one of those factors is, of course, poor visibility. As Ed was talking about, if you have an EDR and you can't see what's going on beyond the EDR, right? That's only showing what's happening on the endpoints themselves, not what's happening between them. As well as, the beautiful thing around this is, a lot of traditional legacy packet analysis or network threat analysis engines were deployed on the egress and ingress points, the north-south activity. But the power of Corelight is enabling cameras, I like to call them, or DVRs for the wire across any landscape, north, south, east, and west, or of course, as Ed mentioned, in the cloud. So they are completely eliminating that visibility factor within the security operations center. Of course, the alert fatigue is another major problem, and it's not just the alert fatigue, the volumes of the alerts, but it's the fidelity of those alerts. If you're getting just a lot of traditional like correlation rules or utilizing just simply threat intelligence to do the detection, you're doing a lot of chasing around and triaging and wasting a lot of time trying to validate, is this a real alert? Is this truly an investigation or a warranting an investigation or a response? There's a lot of time being spent there. That also comes into the point when I'm talking about with that threat intelligence. A lot of us in the industry now are drinking the Kool-Aid of that threat intelligence is critical for our success in defending our organizations, which is very, very important. But the problem is it's all over the place. There's a lot of isolated threat data that are in different formats, different locations, and to operationalize that data in an effective manner is a challenge that SOCs are facing today. And even if they do finally go through the triage workflows and somewhat get additional visibility or get some additional context that this fidelity of the or low fidelity alert actually is turning into an actual investigation, then with being able to pivot into an actual investigation and conduct the incident response, and the whole workflow of the determinations of what do I need to do? How many endpoints are involved here? What are the impacts to my organization in these entities or endpoints? Really, really slow process of those investigative workflows, which in turn completes the circle here of, if I'm taking a long time to triage the alerts and I'm taking an extremely long time to finally get through my investigations, of course, that's going to impact my ability to respond in an effective manner. Now, sure, there's technologies that have been developed now to try and improve that, such as SOARs, and they are very effective at that. But of course, those are built with playbook executions in mind, right? So it's, if I see this, do that, which is very important because it's streamlining those workflows. But of course, we're up against the zero-day threats, the always changing threat landscapes and such. So the playbooks are great, but they're not all inclusive. So there's that continuous circle of the unknown threats that we have to waste our time or spend our time trying to figure out exactly what's going on. So when you combine Corelight and Devo with the landscape of all your other artifacts that you might have availability in, such as other logs or other event generating systems, you put them into the Devo platform, and we really are operationalizing and putting the right data with this right supporting context at the analyst fingertips. So those challenges and pains that I was just describing that we received reports back from the Panamon report, we are trying to help as much as possible to eliminate those factors. When it comes from the detection, right, we're trying to automatically produce the context that's needed by utilizing threat intelligence more than it's traditionally used for alerting. We're also using it for enrichment, supporting context, more visibility about potentially the attack or the alert that's in front of me. Also doing modeling, identifying impacts, right? What is this thing? Is this an entity? Is this a system? Is this a user? What is the impact to my organization? A lot of those, again, wasted time to make those decisions are being automated by the Devo solution. When you're pivoting through the investigative workflow, right? Trying to streamline and enrich those artifacts very quickly to give all the supporting information necessary to make those decisions. And as Ed mentioned, which is an exciting thing when you talk about the two technologies, is all that power, that visibility that the Zeke logs are providing, but then you can snap on top of that the ability, if a binary or a file is seen in transport in a session, to be able to extract that out and send it to us. As you will see, we have the capability to automate that process and actually have it in our sandbox environment to where we can actually emulate and do static analysis of the binaries and add them as evidentiary items as part of the investigation. As well as if there is PCAPs that are captured and or saved, you can have them as added as artifacts and you're in the digital forensic workbench in Devo. If forensics are being conducted on the victims or entities involved in the attack or breach, you can do memory collections or memory dumps and actually process those in Devo as well. So the days of the swivel chair copy paste incident response workflows are thankfully becoming a thing of the past. And then of course, now as I have all of this automated workflows and capabilities and visibility at my fingertips, our responses are much more automated. Our enrichments are also helping to keep the orchestration playbooks more relevant and up to date and effective. So the last thing we want to really talk about is how does the Devo platform really do that for organizations? We are at the core of our platform a enterprise log management solution. So we can take in any data source from any technology stack in the industry, in the world for that matter. Whether it's structured or unstructured data, this is the foundation of our security operation platform, which legacy SIMs were not built for that, right? Legacy SIMs were built for security event data. Only technologies that generated security information were what's going into the SIM. That's great as a starting point, but as an investigator or incident responder, you're always having to go outside that view to grab additional context, to provide additional analytics, and have to go into multiple other data sources, either user interfaces or other ways to obtain that data, which is still a very manual, broken process. So we're automating all of that. We're saying, give us everything, centralize all your data in one single spot, and then we've snapped on an operational workflow with all of these capabilities out of the box. So again, we're automatically enriching that. We have our own threat data service that comes out of the box, which is a community collaboration threat intelligence sharing center that enables you to, again, utilize it for detections, of course, but additional context, right? And you can share your findings within the community, kind of like a social network for threat intel sharing that you can opt in, opt out of how broadly you want to share those findings. What I mentioned, when we take that data that we're getting from Corelight and we combine that with other technologies such as an EDR, now I truly have in a single workflow, I'm seeing something on the wire, doing something potentially bad. I have the ability to point and shoot and actually confirm, if I did see a binary in transport going towards this victim, did that binary actually execute? What did it do if it executed? Who else did it, touch once it executed? All within a single workflow. So what we're going to do next is actually show some of this in action. So we're going to go into the Devo solution now to actually replicate a day in the life of a security operations center. So what I have up on the screen now is just an example. This is a security dashboard example of all the goodness coming in real time from the Corelight sensors. And this is just customizable interactive maps and dashboards that you could have up on your screens in your security operations center. And all of this is interactive, where I can choose specific artifacts that could easily pivot, update, and change all the supporting maps down below. So as I can see in here, the new and exciting addition to Corelight, the Sericata threat detections are now invoked, where I can immediately see all the new threats that are coming in, either from my north-south activity or being observed through my east-west activity, where of course I can point and shoot, and it give me all the supporting artifacts at my fingertips of who's involved here. So just as an example of how I could have live interactive screens showing the visibility that Corelight's providing. Now, let's say alerts are firing and we want to get into a day in the life of triaging these. Here's another dashboard, which is actually showing me live state of the union of what's going on in my organization, not only from an alerting perspective, but from a live analytical perspective. Of course, as I mentioned, we're doing modeling to identify impact scores of the entities, real-time communications, that the visibility that Corelight's providing us of not only the outsiders and who they're talking to, but who they're talking to inside, and where my office locations are, is it impacting me the most. I also have a case management dashboard here for me to see how many actual investigations are underway, what's the status of them, even conversion ratio mapping to tell me how many of my alerts are actually converting into actual investigations. What is my mean time to response or mean time to resolve ratios? All of that is operationalized within the platform. So if I go into the dashboards where all my alerts are provided to me, we have a customizable view of whatever your job function is or your role function is in the organization. So if I can see in here, I can pivot on prioritizations, maybe geolocations if I'm a global organization, and even maybe I'm interested in specific campaigns that are utilizing this tactic or technique in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Everything we fire alerting in and we correlate the data in the Devo platform is, of course, mapped to the tactic and techniques in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So at any time, I can immediately pivot into and see all the data that I feel necessary at my fingertips. So I'm going to pivot my view, and being a level 1 analyst, I've customized my view for that to say I want to see all the critical and high alerts from all my data coming in right now. Now, what we're doing here is we're aggregating and normalizing the data for you, so you're not getting that alert fatigue syndrome. We are seeing here, based upon modeling that we're doing and analytics, identifying and observing that there is several characteristics, several alerts that are being triggered around this victim, or this entity as we call it. I have 25 of them around this victim, and they're mapping to your locations, techniques, and tactics. And we also are providing tracking to say, when was the first time we've seen this entity? Is it a troublemaker? How many times have we seen this entity in our organization? When was the first time, the last time? So we have in our threat intelligence ecosystem, we are tracking, as we have a sightings database so you can continuously keep track of maybe your troubled assets or your troubled adversaries, your continuous adversaries. So I'm going to go into this workflow here, this critical alert that I have at my dashboard here, and I'm going to pivot in and triage this alert. Now I have all the supporting artifacts that are available to me. This one is starting the journey that came in from some suspicious PowerShell activity that was executed that, yes, was coming from my EDR engine. But that's just the tip of this iceberg here. The nice thing is I don't have to pivot out of this, to go into my EDR to say, what are all the supporting metadata? We are extracting it all, so I have it at my fingertips. And we have a timeline replayer that actually shows exactly what has happened when this activity occurred. But it doesn't end there. Now we're pulling up and enriching. Here's a lot of the other Corelight visibility data that's being added into this story in a time sequential order. So now I have my initial alert, but I also see that Corelight's provided me intelligence around suspicious command and control connections. Also, RDP protocol scanning and execution of that, which could be indicative of lateral movement that east-west visibility Corelight provides us. So I have in time sequential order where I can zoom in and even pivot on specific things and add them to these specific forensic artifacts to an investigation if I need. But it doesn't end there for my triage. Based upon all these supporting artifacts I have, I could easily say, okay, this seems very important. I want to know who this victim, this entity is actually associating with in real time. Launch the real-time viewer that Corelight's going to provide me with a real-time visibility because they are, of course, recording this data real-time, and we are mapping out the association view. So now I can immediately see every other victim, not potential victim, but at least every other asset or entity that my victim here in the middle is talking to. If I highlight over, we're again, automatic enrichment. We can consume like vulnerability information, at CMDB or asset management tagging to identify what is the importance of this entity and the impact to my organization. What kind of operating system is he running, right? Is he acting as a system or a user? What type of activity? Of course, we're pivoting here and we see an outlier. So obviously this outlier is showing me by the size of its representation that he is the highest amount of communications that Corelight is showing us in this workflow. So maybe I want to expand that out. Say Corelight, turn the camera on broader. So now I'm seeing not only the beginning, but mapping it out through my east, west, north, south traffic. Immediate additional context and observations. My victim was here, but we are observing other entities that are showing the exact kind of behaviors, both on the network layer as well as additional EDR layer and other supporting artifacts that we are accumulating. So I can immediately replay the workflow, not only in real time, but I have a historical player where I can rewind the tape and show exact sequential order of how the attack occurred and the propagation conducted. So pretty much everything I needed to make my decision, all the automatic enrichments are provided to me and the correlation of the supporting artifacts. So at any time I could pivot and say, I want to add this artifacts or additional context and create an investigation. So by doing so, I can assign that to my level 2 or level 3 responders, and they would get the notification that a case has been assigned to them. Now, with that being said, now we are in the case management workflow to where I can immediately see that this case was created. I have my case management workflow here that I could put aside, and now I've got everything that's going on in this investigation. I could pivot and look at the chain of custody and the timeline of everything that has occurred from the time the case opened all the way through its current status in a logged manner. By pivoting here, I can see every case note that's been made, all the enrichment that I can see are not just the initial alert, but the lateral movement and all the other supporting artifacts that Corelight has provided me. I can see, of course, the CNC. We're doing automatic domain analysis, analytics, looking for potential exfiltration or lateral movement, all pivoted and automated. Another nice thing around this is any queries, any investigative workflows that I maybe want to save as artifacts are all kept as part of this investigation. All the automatic victims or additional entities are mapped for me, so I can keep them organized in a nice, safe manner. Also, what we're doing is by the case notes and the bookmarks that I'm making in this investigation, we are doing modeling behind the scenes to automatically uncover additional related investigations or potential other victims. So I'm going to look at this new case that was launched, and I can see in here that this investigator has saying, okay, I found a suspicious fingerprinted JA3 artifact that Corelight has identified. I also have found some invalid certs like Ed was talking about that they've identified. And here's additional files that were observed and captured during those communications. So I have all of this available at my fingertips. Speaking of that, I want to look at that file. This is the file that Corelight captured and sent to us, where we can immediately look at and execute it and see what is known about this. I have this in my virus total. I look at it up and doing anything else known about it. I could see that it's been determined as a TrickBot code, as well as any other analytics I want to do. I also have the PCAP that was extracted around the time that this investigation happened, where I can bring that up and analyze it out. So to wrap this up, this is another big piece of the puzzle for me. Of course, I had the real-time associations. I had the all the supporting artifacts that uncovered this threat. Now I might want to say, you know, this is what Corelight provided that just happened. I want to just go and look historically to see, is any of this ever been seen historically in my organization? So immediately I'm passing the artifact that Corelight provided to me, and I'm going to do a retrospective hunt. I'm going to take this back to June 1st of 2019 to right now, so I can uncover any other communications that has that artifact in it. And that fast, I just searched across terabytes of data. I've got my other victims that have been identified in here. The nice thing about this is I can select whatever identifiers I want by host name, by IP, whatever, and add them to my existing investigation that I already have underway. So as you can see, when you really combine the visibility of the Corelight network communication analyzing and pump that into the Devo platform, where you can save all of it for as long as you want. By default, we're retaining the data for 400 days, and it's hot. It's not in a cold or warm bucket. It's hot, searchable all the time, giving you that ability to not only to enrich, detect, hunt in a very, very effective manner. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to Ed and open up and finish up this conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. All right, so just to wrap up our presentation today, just wanted to talk a couple final points on how users of Devo and Corelight can benefit from our combination. So giving you things like approved detections, high fidelity alerts that are generated by Corelight logs, get automatically enriched in Devo to include that entity context, threat intelligence, really important for reducing mean time to resolution. Enabling you to do faster investigations, so uncovering potential threats, using Zeke data, using those great, beautiful visual analytics, and as well as using the Devo no-code query capability for faster mitigation of threats. You get analyst-tailored workflows helpful for investigating, doing investigations, helping you triage, investigate, and respond. File analysis, like we just saw in Jason's demo, whether those are binaries or PCAPs, using Devo's integrated DFIR toolkit, that's going to help you include those findings directly within the investigation, helping investigators to centralize that evidence in one location. Easier threat hunting with Corelight data. Corelight data is a really great source for doing that threat hunting, and then joining it with other key security data sources in Devo can really help gain a complete understanding of finding IOCs in your environment. And this is all true real-time network visibility. You're getting real-time network visibility from Corelight, and that's enabling you to do real-time big data security analytics in Devo. So if you're interested in learning more, be sure to check out the Corelight and Devo joint solution brief. If you check the handouts panel of the GoToWebinar toolbar, you'll see the solution brief in there. It's just a PDF. You can grab that, download that. And also a really cool report that Devo just released is the 2020 Devo SOC Performance Report. You can grab that on the link listed on the screen. And then you can also head over to our websites to learn more, corelight.com and devo.com/sim. So with that, we'll go ahead and open up our Q&A session. So if you have any questions for us, please enter those into the questions window and we'd be happy to answer. All right, so first question, what's the difference between Corelight and Zeke? And I can go ahead and take that one. So as I mentioned, the company Corelight, founded by the creators and maintainers of the open source Zeke project. And what we do is we make it very quick and easy to deploy Zeke. So we're talking deployment in minutes, not months to get to that deployment. We also you also get a beautiful web graphical user interface. No command line skills are needed. We also give you really great performance, so up to 10 times peak analysis throughput for our sensors. That's just a couple of the advantages. If you would like to learn more, if you go to corelight.com under the products link, there's a side-by-side comparison where you can see how Corelight compares to open source Zeke. Great. Next question, how is Devo deployed? Jason, you want to take that one?
Sure. So the Devo platform is a SaaS solution. It is traditionally deployed in AWS instance to where you have full visibility of all your data sets that can be sent to dedicated data nodes, which we call them, to collect and store all your information. It's very easy to get the data into it. We have a relay that can be configured internally to transport the data in a encrypted and compressed manner. Or if you have other ways such as syslog servers or streaming type of configurations that you can enable the data to get transported to the wire, Devo will take it from there.
Excellent, thank you. And let's see here, next question, is Zeke and Sericata involved here for threat detection? Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's actually kind of the main part of the demo that we saw from Jason, and as well as kind of a new announcement that we made recently at Corelight is we now have Zeke and Sericata running on one sensor, so very, very quick and easy to get that visibility. And Jason, did anything that you wanted to add on there to that question?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Ed. Absolutely. As far as the investigation that I walked through, there was threats that were detected with the Sericata and Zeke packaging together. But as you also saw, because we are the center of the universe of all things data for the organization, there was additional technologies such as the EDR that were part of that detection as well.
Excellent. And another question for you, Jason, can Devo ingest PCAP data, or does it have to be Zeke, Bro, or NetFlow data?
So it's all of the above. The traditional mode of operation will be that Corelight is going to consume the data and do all its goodness of processing it and send it to us, so we have all of it isolated out in the different categories that we can, of course, correlate and combine. But if there is a engine that's out there, a sniffer or a TCP dump engine or whatever it is, any solution that can be used to capture PCAPs, you can ingest those into Devo, and we can process them for analytics within the investigative workbench.
Excellent, thank you. And next question, does Corelight use any ML-based threat models to detect anomalous network patterns? So with Corelight, what we're doing is providing a data source that you can use for those ML-based threat models. So providing the right kind of data that enables that, that's kind of what we see as our data first strategy, is that our job is to provide really, really good data, really good evidence, show you exactly what's happening on the network. And then you get the opportunity to use that data how you see fit. So if you want to plug that into ML, if you want to put that in a data lake, if you want to put it into a great solution like Devo, you have that flexibility. And then Jason, not sure if you had any add-on comments
Yes,
there.
we do. So just as an example, when you are pumping that data into Devo, that was one of the things I was talking about with the entity analytics, as we are using that visibility that Corelight's providing us to do entity modeling, right? To identify those associations, right? And we are doing those models over rolling periods of times to look at behavioral analytics, right? So maybe it's this entity that's in this communication here during this run model was speaking with 25 other entities. The next time he was speaking with 200, right? Those are spikes. And then we're also utilizing the visibility Corelight provides around the volumes of the communication. Maybe this entity was only transporting a few megabits per second. Next thing I know, he's transporting gigabits, right? Maybe that's indicative of large volume exfiltration or denial of service, and he's used as the launching pad. So when you combine us together, absolutely, there's models that can be that are utilized to identify anomalous network patterns.
Excellent. All right. Next question: how do Corelight sensors collect network traffic? Awesome. So with Corelight, our sensors are deployed out of band, so they're passive sensors. They can monitor on-prem traffic or cloud traffic. So on-prem, typically connected to a packet broker, network tap, span port, bringing in, copy of the data that's going across the network. So in a cloud environment, we can collect data via virtual tap services. So for example, like AWS has a VPC traffic mirroring, and we do support agent-based packet mirroring solutions as well, like a Garland Prisms, for example. Cool. Alrighty, next question. Is Devo SaaS? Is it multi-tenant? Sounds like a good question for you, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned before, yes, we are, our go-to-market strategy is SaaS. Yes. We can be deployed as well as a software service in any cloud, if multi-cloud for that matter. And yes, we are multi-tenant, built with the infrastructure from the ground up to support global security operations centers and or MSSP providers.
Excellent. What sources does Devo support besides Corelight?
So that's a great question. There is no limit to the data sources that Devo can consume. Again, if it's a event, it's a log, it's an alert, it doesn't matter to us. If it's structured or unstructured, the uniqueness from Devo is that we do not require a pre-built parser. We do not require a pre-built application to be able to utilize the data for analytics and alerting and investigations. No matter what the data is, Devo can use it and support, and utilize it for supporting artifacts in a case.
All right. Looks like we got a couple more questions for Devo. How long do I have to wait after the data is ingested before I can search?
That's another unique differentiator for us. Devo lives in a streaming world. So literally by the time the technology such as Corelight generates that Zeke log, it's available for analytics in sub-seconds. We aren't touching the data when Corelight sends it to us. We are literally streaming that to our back end in its raw format. We don't index the data before we can use it. We aren't parsing it. We aren't doing anything. It's literally Corelight produces it, or this is any data source for that matter, and we are consuming it in sub-second time.
Great. What is the max retention period you support for hot searchable data?
So we don't live in a hot, warm, cold bucket in Devo, just in the way that we consume and process the data. Everything that is consumed is encrypted and compressed in its native raw state. And as you know, we are all aware, any 99.9% of the data that's produced by technologies are flat textual files. Some of them may be JSON nested deeply, but at the end of the day, it's textual. So we can compress at minimum of 10 to 1. We've seen 20 plus to 1 compression ratios. But once the data is consumed by us, by default, in your SaaS subscription with us, you get 400 days. There are some customers that, based for requirements or other things, require 6 years, 7 years. For us, it does not matter. Everything is hot all the time.
Great. Does Devo require any correlation rules tuning? And how do you guys compare to likes of Securonics and Exabeam? Do you also have UEBA capabilities?
So that is one way. There is really 4 different ways that Devo does alerting, for that matter. The one is the detection format, which does use traditional correlation rules. It also uses Sigma. It uses threat intelligence, all the heuristic types of things, the traditional legacy SIM models. That's one way. But then we also do observation alerting, which is more around the ML modeling, right? So like even the situation I brought up about entity modeling, and that's where, like other technologies that have been mentioned, they focus their attention on UEBA. We've taken a different approach. We are doing entity analytics. So we're not just limited to say what is the behavioral analysis of a user. We're looking at the enterprise, right? And what is this thing? Is it a system? Is it a user? What is its associations? What is its entitlements? What is its normal activity? So we've taken that approach and extended it to a much more robust and rich visibility. And then unlike like a rule for baselining of a user activity. And then we also have analytic alerting that is based on practitioner expertise and observations that analysts maybe has observed in the investigations and made notes of them or case comments. As you saw in my workflow, those are also used in a modeling environment to identify potential other related investigations, but also potential other victims. So there's one other piece of the puzzle that we utilize, and this is something very unique for us, is we have a ML workbench that comes with the platform. So anybody that wants to create and run their own models, we are agnostic to any modeling type. Unlike other technologies, you can use it to run any type of models against any data you have to enrich your threat detections and your behavioral analytics.
Great. Thank you for that. And looks like we have one last question. I think this is also for Devo. How long do I have to wait for historical data to come online?
There is no such wait. Like I mentioned earlier, we live in a hot world. It's streaming real time as far as the data is available. And once we have consumed it, it's available all the time. So there is no wait period or restoring, like, again, the warm, cold buckets of retention. Once it touches us, it's available for you to use indefinitely.
Great. All right. So I think that's our last question. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. So I'd like to thank my co-presenter today, Jason. Thank you for attending and giving us the presentation, the demonstration. Appreciate you being here with us today, as well as thanks to all of our attendees for attending. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks for stopping by and have a great day.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.